Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan, the voice behind ThatKaitoDan, and welcome to my review for RWBY Volume 7 Episode 11, Gravity. Sorry this is a tad late, but I had some issues with my C drive that caused some delays. However, I'm here now, and before we get started, as always, please make sure you watch this episode first through roosterteeth.com to support the show and avoid spoilers. So let's switch focus quickly now to the viewer comments section for last week's episode, starting with Tanya Bams, who shared some love for the many team-ups on display and the MVP that was Elm, while Willow the Wolf praised Elm's opponents, the Goliaths, and hopes that this quality work with the Grimm continues. Then, to wrap things up, we then have Red-Furred Pikachu, who was super chuffed to finally see the heroes get one over on the villains before their plans caught them by surprise once again. Keep those comments coming and tune in next week to see if they appear in the next segment. So, last time out, we had our first taste of the fight for Atlas's survival with some fun action down in the streets of Mantle. Not only that, but as Red-Furred Pikachu pointed out, this time it was the baddies who got duped, with both Tyrion and Watts lured out into the open. The action carried what was the setup for some higher stakes battles to come, and did so with a very positive reception, much like the reaction to Ironwood and Robin's show of unity. But now we're getting into the real meat of this final conflict. Was this episode able to deliver on the quality, or did it fall flat on its face? Let's find out. We start right where we left off with a battle as heated as the lava plume shooting up, Watts versus Ironwood, who, backed by a rocking version of his militaristic leitmotif, pulls out a second gun, a black colored pistol that uses gravity dust for its shots. Perfect then to immediately jettison the general into action, taking it to Watts. And as you would expect, the more combat experienced James swiftly pummels the Doctor, before Arthur activates what becomes the tasty element to this fight, the gravity biomes. See, when the blocks have the white lights to them, the gravity pulls you down to it. However, when the lights go purple, the reverse happens and gravity is sending you away. Now James isn't just fighting Watts, he's also fighting the mind-bending environment. And boy does it help make this battle an absolute feast for the eyes. And what's even better is we have a new song, though it's not sung by Jeff or Casey. Instead, it's provided by Caleb Hiles, a popular singer on YouTube, and I for one was over the moon to hear him. Caleb's got an amazing singing voice, and I've loved his work for a while now. In fact, he's even done some RWBY covers too, and did a duet with Casey. You should definitely go give his stuff a listen to, that's for sure, especially if you enjoyed his performance here, singing Ironwood's first ever vocal song, Hero. I'll save some of the deeper context for later, but the general message of this piece is highlighting Ironwood's unwavering drive to protect people, no matter the costs, and the music gives this message all the pomp and circumstance that it needs to fit both James's fierce resolve and the high intensity of this battle. You can tell the RWBY had a lot of fun making the most of this gravity gimmick, focusing a lot on twisting angles and shots that you wouldn't find in a normal fight, and with it being more of a chase than a straight up brawl, it works to both fighters' strengths, whilst keeping the pace just as sharp as the various spins and slams. Ironwood, like I said, naturally comes out on top when it comes to close quarters punching, but Watts is mentally sharp enough to get out of dodge most times, with his smart use of the gravity switching and focused use of his gun. Speaking of the fancy weapon, Watts is also counting down each time he shoots to keep track of how many bullets he has remaining. Though I am glad that we don't have him constantly counting down every shot, just a handful of them. And if you do count his electrical dust shots as 2, his counting is accurate by the end of the fight, so it's nice to see the RWBY be 100% accurate with this detail. At one point, Ironwood is disarmed of his gravity gun, but gets the drop on Watts when taking a different route, and after some mid-air slugging, the Doctor is slammed to the ground, breaking his aura before both combatants take a huge tumble to the center stage. Kinda shocked Watts was able to survive a fall like that after losing his aura, but regardless, the fight continues with both men now without their aura and the platform rising to the ceiling. Perfect time then for some bickering, as we hear more of Watts' vitriol towards the man that he feels gave him no credit for his genius, which Ironwood benefited from. And Watts is most pissed off that Ironwood had the gall to choose Pietro over him. So there's that theory about his project not actually measuring up to Pietro's coming true. I wonder what that project was though. Knowing him, it must have been some kind of dangerous tech that may have crossed a few moral lines. Still, without the gravity and aura to protect him, Watts gets pummeled hard, and the general calls him out on his bluff when he has a gun to his head, having also kept count of the shots. But just when Ironwood looks to have won, Watts gets the drop on him and binds Ironwood to a nearby beam, via trapping his normal arm in hard light dust. Something that will tear Ironwood's arm to pieces if he tries to pull it out. It looks nasty as hell, seeing the flesh burn off him with his attempts, and were it anyone else, you'd imagine that would be the end of it. But Watts, for as smart as he is, doesn't consider what the desperate will accomplish when their back is against the wall, as Ironwood painfully drags his arm free, grabs Watts by the neck, grinds him across the floor, and hoists him over the edge above a section of lava. Holy freaking hell! Now we know for sure that Ironwood's metal parts aren't exactly half and half on his body, cause dude just confirmed he has balls of goddamn steel. I mean, look at his arm, he looks like Deku from the tournament arc. But boy doesn't that just showcase Ironwood's conviction in the most badass way possible. Like he says, he's willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to stop Salem, even if it means injuring himself. Mad freaking props. And what a way to close off such an amazing opening scene. This has to be one of the strongest first sequences of a RWBY episode. A massive respect to everyone who worked on it. The fight from top to bottom was a full throttle joyride with an entertaining concept, fantastic visual work, and a tense yet sharp tempo that just had me glued to the screen. And that's not even the end of the action, cause now we jump to Watts' comrade, Tyrion, who's faced with the triple threat of Clover, Robin, and Crow. And where the previous fight was more tactical, this one is just a slugfest against an agile threat, with Crow taking the lead in offense. These two fight just as crisp and aggressive as they did in Kuro Yuri, but this time Crow has backup that can keep up with him, as Clover shows his own pro level agility, working well with Crow, using his fishing rod to ensnare their prey and leave him prone for some attacks. Robin meanwhile is making sure that any moment of freedom Tyrion does get is hampered by her ranged fire, making life very difficult for the killer, which I absolutely love. It's great to see him constantly on the ropes for a change, and to see these three expert huntsmen and huntresses working on the same page like a well-oiled machine. There's also this super cool moment where Crow distracts Tyrion by launching his weapon into the air before kicking him in the back of the head and catching his sword like a bamf. Now who's the show-off, Crow? Robin also gets in a lovely trick shot showing her skill with her arrows before some more wrangling and punches causes Tyrion to snap, spinning out of his bindings like a murderous Beyblade. Now he's gone mad, like when he tore through the Beringale in a rage. But this leads to his undoing, as Tyrion chomps on an incoming arrow that has a little bit of spice to it. The blast breaks his aura and leaves Tyrion wide open for a brutal yet satisfying kick to the head from Robin, finally putting him to sleep. The only thing that would have made this more satisfying is if Robin said that was for Fiona. But alas, we'll just have to settle for another fantastic fight. Again, this was much more chaotic and fast-paced than the opening contest, which definitely helps it stand out and offers something different to avoid viewers feeling burnt out so early in the episode. The emphasis on teamwork provided some cool looking combo moves, and it's pleasing to note that even with the super quick pace of it all, I never felt lost at what was going on. The brawl also having some slower moments to focus on Tyrion's growing frustrations. Plus points too for not making it an absolute curb stomp, as Tyrion did get in a few good shots. But another fight done, another super positive reaction from yours truly. With both enemies now defeated, we return to Ironwood, now bandaged up, but while he has Watts' bag in hand, he doesn't have the man himself. So I gotta ask, did he actually drop Watts into the lava? I mean, he could have arrested him and just put him in jail, but Ironwood doesn't look like the kind of man right now who would allow such a dangerous threat to be just held up in a cell. Even Watts himself seemed to accept his death when he wishes evil intentions for him. We don't even see Watts for the rest of the episode, so that adds to the chances of him now being roasted. But, you know, as always, the phrase, no body, no death, has me conflicted. Sadly, Ironwood's relief is short-lived, as he spots something in his office that swiftly turns his face into a look of shock. And whatever it is enough to make him call Winter to check if anyone has broke into the school, which she denies. Now Winter's panicking too, and she runs back inside, which is perfect for the watching Cinder, who hopes the specialist will lead her right to where the Winter Maiden is. Anyone else getting deja vu? Ironwood then orders Penny and the others to return to base without explaining why, something that has the heroes confused. Not helped by the fact that the evacuations are still ongoing, and Elm and Harriet say that they shouldn't question or try to understand the General's orders. Atlas, don't think, obey. No wonder Cinder got in so easily, she feels right at home. Whatever is going on, Team Junior will find out later, while they go grab Oscar. Meanwhile, the others reach Ironwood, who reveals what's got him riled. The Black Queen has reared its head again. All of a sudden, Ironwood's positive reception to protecting Mantle and evacuating so many people to Atlas falls apart, as his paranoia sparks doubt about whether this is all in line with Salem's plans. We know the chess piece symbol is something that Ironwood has etched into his mind as a constant reminder of Salem and his failure to protect Vale. Now it's back again, and the notion that all of this was for naught and that Salem seems to be one step ahead of him all the time has him raging. But RWBY catches on that the chess piece is made of black glass, a trademark of Cinder, who, of course, they all assume died at Haven. Gotta say, as extremely flawed and frustrating a character Cinder is, I'm kinda glad that the series has a steady track record of showing Cinder as this ultimate opportunist. She's like a vulture, scavenging off the remains of those she's willing to prey on to feed her hunger for power, even if it's making the most of her own allies. She's robbed lives, stolen power, and now she's taken full advantage of the turmoil that Tyrion and Watts have created to benefit her goals. It's honestly one of Cinder's most stable character points, which, for a character with a fair share of negative elements, is something that I think is worth some praise for its consistency. Revealing this is all a ploy by Cinder, though, doesn't help Ironwood's emotional state. Either way, it's still a dark sign that someone has snuck past them, and the fight is not over yet. But when Blake voices that the team is still on his side, willing to help fight off this new danger, Ironwood questions if that's true. Oh boy. Yeah, see, Ironwood, despite agreeing to working with Robin, hasn't forgotten that she found out about the communications tower without Ironwood's consent, and he wants to know if Team RWBY were responsible, which, after a shock beat, Yang does admit. You guys wanted consequences? Well, here you go. Yeah, it did work out in the end that Robin could be trusted, but to Ironwood, that wasn't certain at first, and good intentions or not, they still betrayed his trust by telling her without letting Ironwood know. It's an understandable reaction for someone who's clearly made it clear he values trust a great deal, especially in these trying times, for better or for worse. Though, does anyone else kind of think it's a bit hypocritical that he talks about being completely honest when his claims about the communications tower being ready to go weren't true? Just because he didn't change other people's plans doesn't mean that he didn't lie to the people of Mantle. And, spoiler alert, this does come back to bite him too. But this tirade gets put on hold as What's-His bag, which has been moving on its own a little while now, suddenly pops open, revealing a Seer Grim inside. Ironwood, dude, you didn't even check what was inside the bag before you felt it was worth keeping? Regardless, the creepy creature is here, and so too is Salem, whose shadowy projected form rises from the self-destroying Grim and reveals to everyone here that Tyrion and Watts weren't the main threat to Atlas. She is. Tyrion did say last volume that he and Watts were sent to Atlas to prepare. Turns out he meant prepare a weakened Atlas for an unwinnable battle against Salem and her grim army that is on the way. And Salem, being the twisted manipulator she is, challenges Ironwood's shaken efforts to remain defiant by offering him an out. Why fight on and continue Atlas's suffering when he could just give her the relics and avoid himself and the kingdom falling by her hand? Salem really shines in these kind of moments where she uses her overwhelming, intimidating presence to bend people to her whims. It's the one thing that's helped her maintain a level of danger while she's kept off the battlefield. And much love to Jen's soothing voice, breathing such a gentle yet commanding tone, masking the vicious implications of her plans. But where Ironwood's bravery is being tested, RWBY's remains vigilant, as she brings up that they know of Salem's past via the lamp, which does break Salem's evil smirk. Massive respect to RWBY's stable heart here. This is the first time she's had an interaction with Salem, and not once does she buckle under her presence. Oh, she's certainly afraid of Salem and fears what could happen very soon, but she's not letting her emotions stop her from remaining brave. She's standing there openly calling out Salem for her failures in the past, and that even with her being unkillable, RWBY remains confident they will stop her. It's a big moment for RWBY's character, showing such unwavering hope in her heart for the first one-to-one conversation with the big bad. But whereas in the past her conviction is enough to gain a positive outcome, Salem has a counterpoint. The fact that she's heard these comments before from Summer, and she was wrong. Many of us have speculated that Summer's last mission was her trying and failing to defeat Salem, and this looks to be the case, something that just rocks RWBY to her core. Her mother was such a big part of who she is and who she wants to be, even with her dying at a very young age in her life. And the idea that Summer died to Salem is enough for her to start crying. What really makes this moment land such an emotional gut punch, along with her breakdown, is the shots of Summer at that familiar cliffside. And I just adore how it's a massive reversal of the last time we saw her. The sky, once glowing with a bright sunny light, is replaced with bleak clouds of darkness. Summer's warm smile is now a crestfallen frown, and the camera that was panning closer and closer to her as her memory helped RWBY unleash her power is now drifting further and further away as her death makes RWBY's spirit weaker. Simply beautiful visual storytelling there. And in the middle of this emotional breakdown, RWBY's silver eyes start sparking up, even letting out a small burst before she crumples to the floor holding her head. Which I have to wonder, is this because of Salem's comments, or is it RWBY's power reacting negatively because part of her wants to use her eyes to hurt Salem in revenge? Maria did say that the silver-eyed powers are meant to preserve life, not harm it, so perhaps the power is backlashing as a result of her emotions and thoughts right now. Gotta love though that Yang is the first one there to check on RWBY and hold her close, looking equally heartbroken as well over this revelation about her second mother. With the emotional damage done and the message delivered, Salem vanishes, and the Aesops, still absorbing facing the true enemy for the first time, wonder why the border defenses for the kingdom haven't alerted them about an incoming attack. Thing is, they're all offline, either thanks to Watts' hacking or Salem's army just wiping them all out. And with the comms tower not being complete like Ironwood claimed, it looks like all hope is lost, and the general knows it. With a cold, vacant stare on his face, he informs the others that while this is going on, step 1 of his new plan is in effect: Winter claiming the maiden powers from Freya. James isn't willing to wait any longer for Freya to pass away, and he's not willing to continue hiding her either. No, he wants the power in the hands of someone who could possibly use it in the upcoming fight. So yeah, either Winter uses the pods to transfer the power to her through aura, or she has to kill Freya and be her final thought. That ugly possibility, and the fact that Ironwood is now forcing Winter into the power that Salem will happily kill to utilize, naturally makes Weiss scared for the fate of her sister. But it gets worse. Ironwood is going on a full defensive mode now. He's refusing to fight, because instead of sending Amity Tower into space to unite the world, he's gonna use the staff to make Atlas go from a city in the sky to a city in space, taking it, the relics, and the maiden powers as far from Salem as possible, while leaving Mantle to die. This is that deeper context to Hero that I mentioned before, as there's several lyrics that hints to this plan. Obviously, it's a massively disastrous plan for those still waiting to be evacuated, and this may even include Pietro and Maria, so there's even more reason to panic over such a terrible idea. And sure, Ironwood is only doing what he feels is right. In his mind, it's the only logical option left to save as many lives as possible and keep Salem's targets out of her hands. But now more than ever, his paranoia is playing right into Salem's hands. The Wicked Witch bringing back those themes found in Divide, where she's broken an allied threat through the doubt of one man whose guilt, fear, and savior complex is now driving a wedge in what looked to be a kingdom united. As you'd expect, Team RWBY aren't willing to let Mantle be left to the slaughter when there's still people to protect, and a small chance to protect the comms tower in time. But this is all falling on deaf ears. The Aesops are too scared about Salem and loyal to the general to oppose him, and Winter's still on the way to Freya. Plus, Ironwood is now willing to enact martial law to enforce the plan, regardless of how the council or Robin feels about this. And with that, the only thing that's standing in Ironwood's way is Team RWBY, and if they won't comply, they'll have to be stopped. This whole volume has been about building up this unity for the sake of the kingdom, and now it's broken with no hope of recovery right now. So when Jean calls in about something going on, RWBY sees it as an opening to alert others about Ironwood's plans, before Ironwood cuts off all communications. Before we carry on though, let's check in on the others and some of their reactions to this bombshell, starting with Winter, who is nearing Freya's location alongside Penny. We don't see their facial expressions, but there's no doubt that they would be just as stunned and conflicted about this reveal as everyone else. Penny I feel the most confident in saying she'll object to the plans, but of course the biggest query is Winter. She's Ironwood's second in command, his handpicked successor for the Winter Maiden powers. Is she willing to stand by the general over her sister and those left to die? Much like the killing Freya prospect, I'm not so sure that she would personally agree to it due to her own morals. And it is worth remembering that Winter did say she'd accepted her maiden fate by her own will, regardless of Ironwood's orders. So there is already a part of her that isn't afraid to dismiss him. If I were to make a guess, I think that confliction and her hesitancy to kill Freya, if needed, will stop her from joining Ironwood, at least long enough for Cinder to arrive and cause a fight between her and these two. Then there's the adult trio, who is in mid-flight with the captured Tyrion, and much like Winter, the query is regarding Clover's reaction to all this. Will he remain loyal to the man that he said he owes his life to, or will he aid the others? It is that comment that has me kind of on the fence about him. I don't think he's gonna turn, at least not right away, and I can see Robin and Crow having to talk to him in the midst of a fight. Also, with Tyrion now being awake again, there's concern that he will break out and possibly kill someone. So, yeah, fun times all around. It's Civil War time, folks. Whose side are you on? Team Ironwood or Team RWBY? And said girls aren't gonna take being arrested till the deed is done without a fight. And a fight is what they're gonna get, as Ironwood leaves with a solemn look, accepting this outcome before leaving the remaining Aesops to take down the heroes. Oh boy, I am pumped for this, though I can't help but wonder if Marrow might be the, I guess, Aesops in the hole for the 4 girls. Throughout this scene, he's been the one with the most uncertain expression on his face. Perhaps the youth of the team isn't as resolute in his position as his allies are, though I'm sure they all do feel aggrieved in their own way. But yeah, Marrow could help out Team RWBY, perhaps using his stay semblance to keep the others busy while they flee. I am still looking forward to this fight. I just think that Marrow might be the deciding factor in the heroes managing to get away and try to stop Ironwood. Oh, and that call from Jean? Yeah, Oscar's missing again, as the episode ends with Team Junior looking concerned at the remains of what seems to be a fight in his room, drone parts and battle scars scattered all over the place. Looks like Neo may have gotten to Oscar and is on her way to the vault with him in tow, as per Cinder's demands. Or maybe Oscar fought off the drones if they were sent by Ironwood to restrain him. Okay, yeah, it's more likely Neo got to him, though I do wish we would see the incident itself when she did capture him, just to see what went down and how Oscar reacted to Neo's trickery. Maybe the next episode will start off with that, but either way, at least it's a more impactful moment of Oscar missing as a cliffhanger than in Volume 6. Let's just hope it has a better payoff. So, what did I think of this episode? Well, if my Twitter post haven't already spoiled my answer already, this might be the best RWBY episode ever, in my opinion. Not a single scene delivered poorly. Instead, this episode was packed to the brim with some of the best action, best tension, best drama, and best character moments from the entire series. Sticking with the opening fights, the crewbie worked absolute magic with the exciting gravity concept, as well as the massive love given to the camera work and the chase format working to both fighters' strengths, whilst the fight against Tyrion was enough of a departure, pacing and chemistry wise to make sure I wasn't feeling worn down by going from one intense fight to the next. Maybe the latter could have done with a bit more from Robin, but I feel that may have been countered by whatever she's going to be doing in the next fight. And just having these 2 killer fights that kicked off the episode would have been more than enough to call this a stellar chapter. But no, we got everything that followed as well. The fracturing of the heroes' unity and Ironwood's descent into an emotionally broken opposing force was expertly structured, combining a lot of this volume's arcs and developments into one powder keg of mistrust, lack of communication, and fear clouding judgment. Some people haven't been happy that there seem to have been no consequences for the hero's secrecy and lies, But boy did the RWBY save it for just the right moment, where Ironwood is at his most paranoid and desperate. His reactions are very understandable, and seeing him go from bolden defender to desolate leader is heartbreaking, knowing that it's actions and responses of a man who's so transfixed on not failing again that he's unable to see his own faults and destruction going on. It's the perfect switch up from how Lionheart changed because of Salem, where his fear swallowed him into submission and fealty. Ironwood's fear has swallowed him into destroying all he held dear just to avoid another morale-crushing defeat. It's enough to make you not hate Ironwood for his reckless actions, because we know the good heart inside that is just being swallowed up by the darkness, and the fact that he does know the ramifications of his actions. He's just that broken at this point that he is willing to consider shouldering it for his now exhausted protective whims, which truly helps him become one of RWBY's most complex characters in the lineup. And of course, that turn was also aided by the big bad Salem, who was the straight up scene stealer in my eyes. Jen Taylor's melodic yet toxic voice and Salem's large wispy form wonderfully commanded such a restrained yet overpowering aura that choked the light out of all the heroes without going overblown or too drawn out. Everything she said carried weight and purpose to it to break the wheels of Ironwood and RWBY, and it was glorious. It's quite fascinating now that the volume's biggest threat isn't some uber powerful Grimm or one of the main bad guys. No, it's actually a very real, very personal human threat, helmed by someone that we do want to see stopped, but not at the cost of his life. And I am super glad to see such a fresh setup for a volume finale conflict. The new insight on Summer was also tragic in all the best ways. The strength in Team RWBY, and RWBY especially, was very enjoyable too. And even Cinder had a solid chapter, having small but purposeful actions that helped her schemes and worked in pretty fortunately with the overall intent of breaking down Ironwood's spirit. And the episode left off on the perfect note to build suspense for the fights and further twists to come, bookending this chapter on such a high that, despite the painful moments that I experienced, I couldn't help but fall in love with. So, to cement that love, let's give out my episode awards, starting with the scene of the episode, which, even with the kick-ass opening fights and the heavy conclusion to the scene in the office, I'm going to give to Salem's spirit-breaking speech, for the compelling yet intimidating way that Salem was able to make two of the show's strongest hearts become fragile just by her bitten mind games. Character of the episode though definitely has to go to Ironwood. Even with Salem's impact, this was his chapter, with the general cementing his place as the volume's most developed character, showing both his strengths and weaknesses in brutal, engrossing fashion. And finally, the voice acting gold star, which also has quite a fair share of strong contenders. Barbara, Chris Sabat, Lindsay, and Jason all gave their absolute best, and in any other chapter they probably would get the nod. But I am going to give the biggest praise to Jen Taylor, for even with this rare appearance, finding the best balance of alluring and vicious, with the tone that just broke down our heroes in quick fashion. So yeah, I think this is an easy episode to consider as one of, if not the best chapter the RWBY had ever delivered. The action was kinetic and exciting, the new song and the overall audio production was as perfect as the visual storytelling and camera work. The splintering of the heroes' union was flawless and utilized all the right parts that the volume has built up along the way. And I mean, any episode that left me so emotionally broken by the end of it that I needed to compose myself for a while before my next watch has to have done something special. And this episode unquestionably did that. Before it, I was on the fence about whether or not Volume 7 could topple Volume 6 for the series' best season. but now I think this chapter may have just tipped the scales in its favor. I tip my hat to everyone that crafted such an emotionally draining, visually captivating, character-shining chapter, and I pray that the volume is able to cross the finish line on an equally high note, and so far, I like its chances. But those are just my thoughts, time to make sure you tell me yours. Did you like this episode as much as I did? Do you think that Watts is dead? What's your viewpoint on Ironwood's actions? And whose side do you think Winter and Clover will choose? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe and bell buttons and tick the notification box to get every new video from me as they drop. And follow me on Twitter at ThatKaitoDan for more on anything to do with RWBY, updates on future content for the channel, and more. But until next time, have a good day or good night, and peace out.